Welcome. What I intend to do today is to talk with you about one of the most important aspects within the profession, and that is value pricing. The way I intend to do this is to talk with you about what I consider to be the 7 essential steps of successfully implementing value pricing within the firm. As you know, it is of paramount importance that we invoice the client for the perceived value of our services and not for the amount of time that we spend. Therefore, step number 1, we must invoice the client for the amount of time that we actually spend. Our time recording must be aimed at 100% of the available time. However, quite frequently, the truth is that we do not record all of our time that we spend working on a client's accounts. The reason for this is that staff members quite often are very worried that they will be jumped upon if the actual time that they spend exceeds the budgeted time for any certain engagement. But the truth of the timesheet is that we must record all of the time that we actually spend on the client and make sure that that time is reflected on the billing. Because, as I said before, we do not bill the client for the amount of time that we spend, but rather for the amount of value that they perceive. Therefore, clearly, we must bill them for all of the time that we actually spend. It's very, very simple. Now, let's assume that we are working on a 7.5-hour day, allowing 4 weeks for holiday, 2 weeks for bank holidays, 2 weeks for training, and an entire month for staff appraisals, inwardly facing meetings, marketing meetings, and the like, and clearly we are working within some sort of socialist regime. And that is how we arrive at 1,500 hours per annum. Some of us are, of course, billing for more than 1,500 hours, but those people generally are hopped up on speedballs and have daddy issues. If we are able to record our time, as is the truth, without breaking our people's balls for breaking their budgets, then we are well down the first step to establishing value pricing. Because if we focus intensely on accurately recording our time, it will be much, much more straightforward to bill our clients for something completely different. One way to do this is to implement some sort of amnesty. A way to do that is when a staff member is over budget, they can enter the managing partner's office, fall on their knees, and cry sanctuary. Another idea is to introduce the 30% budget rule. That rule simply states that we will not break your balls for being over budget unless you are way over your budget. If you are only a smidge over your budget, the partner in charge can contact the client to try to convince them to authorize the firm to do the work which has already been completed. Now, the second step along the path to value pricing is to make sure that the words "as agreed" appear on every invoice. By definition, that means that somebody within the firm has spoken with the client and agreed the fee before the work has been done. And clearly it is far easier to write "as agreed" on an invoice than it is to draft an engagement letter or use a scope document. The fourth step to implement value pricing is training. Everybody within the firm should be trained on this notion of value pricing. We have found that one training session is not sufficient. You will need a minimum of more than one. I mean, this isn't rocket science or brain surgery that we're talking about here. It's not like there's an entire think tank devoted to this concept or anything. That would be ridiculous. Step number 7 towards implementing value pricing is please go get yourself a digital dictaphone. The digital dictaphone is the tool of tools for implementing value pricing. Because into it, you can say things such as, we must record 100% of the available time so that we can bill our clients for the value they received rather than the amount of time that we spend. Then play it back for yourself and you can hear for yourself how absolutely asinine that actually sounds. So, there we are. 7 steps to implement value pricing. We hope that you find this helpful. If we can be of further help, please do not hesitate to pick up the phone or send us an email. We are only too pleased to confuse you even further.